HRN listeners. As we celebrate our 15th year, we are deepening our commitment to giving voice to the next generation of food systems storytellers, and we need your help. Our internship and fellowship programs help activate new possibilities for underrepresented and underestimated young people through experiential journalism, audio engineering, and production training. Through these unique programs, HRN helps food equity stewards build essential workforce readiness skills that expand their potential and foster economic mobility. Please consider supporting these critical programs. And with a minimum donation, you can be entered to win a dinner for two at an amazing restaurant in one of 8 cities and tickets to a concert at a great venue in one of those cities. We have incredible partners across the country who have donated, as they also share our passion for helping to educate the next generation of food systems storytellers. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. And make sure you donate before March 31st. Thank you.
Bob's Red Mill believes in baking, breakfast, and the pursuit of good food for all. Learn more at bobsredmill.com/podcast.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. We're a member-supported food radio network broadcasting over 35 weekly shows live from Bushwick, Brooklyn. Join our hosts as they lead you through the world of craft brewing, behind the scenes of the restaurant industry, inside the battle over school food, and beyond. Find us at heritageradionetwork.org.
Welcome to the Grape Nation, your weekly wine journey. Our guest is Caleb Ganzer, wine director and managing partner of La Compagnie Vins Surnaturels in New York City. We'll talk to Caleb about natural wines, what good hospitality is, and other exciting wines to drink now. We'll also taste, you know what? I think I'm going to do a blind taste test with Caleb. You know, normally I announce the wine now. Let's see if he could pick it out, because he's such a know-it-all. He makes his customers try to figure it out. I'm your host, Sam Ben-Ruby. Stay with us for the Grape Nation on the Heritage Radio Network. We bring wine to the people. Caleb Ganzer worked his way up as a sommelier at some of the best restaurants in New York City and Miami, including Flute, Restaurant Danielle, DBGB, DB Bistro Moderne, and 11 Madison. He now oversees one of the most exciting and interesting wine programs in New York City at Compagnie. Caleb was selected as one of Wine and Spirit's Best New Sommeliers of 2016 and recently is one of Food and Wine's 2017 Sommeliers of the Year, where I also think he was the cover boy of that issue. Is that correct?
The Wine and Spirits, that was the cover.
Okay. Welcome to the show, Caleb. Thank you for coming on the Grape Nation.
Thanks for having me, Sam.
Now, before we get into everything, and there's a lot to talk about, I want you to just kind of walk me through your journey in life and wine that got you to where you are now, which is Compagnie, and the last dozen years are impressive and all of that. What I can't figure out is how some little kid from Kankakee or wherever got into wine. So take me up to current.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't really understand it either.
Okay.
It certainly wasn't much of a wine culture in at least where I grew up in Illinois. But it was kind of my time in university was really where I started falling in love with wine.
And that was where?
At University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana.
Party school?
plenty, yeah. I had my fair share of beer, I'm sure, too. But, yeah, so, I mean, literally it's kind of one of those serendipitous moments where I remember growing up and, you know, my grandparents would go out to eat all the time. And, I was probably a rambunctious, grandchild, and my grandmother once said, oh, you'd make a good waiter one day. And I don't know why. Okay. And I just walked by this restaurant that was hiring. It was called Restaurant Timponi's, and they were hiring busboys and waiters. So
how old were you?
I guess I was 19.
Okay.
19, just looking for a side gig. And went in, applied, and it was very old school, but still well run Italian restaurant. And he had a little bit of a wine list there, and I was actually a daytime bartender eventually. And that was, the person who pretty much just peeled garlic all day long while one person came in and had a burger during the day. But occasionally I'd get to watch him tasting wine with the reps and everything, and I got to kind of sample some of the stuff that was open behind the bar, and really just kind of started getting mesmerized by wine. And, I was in a very studious moment of my life, so I started just buying all these wine books and just really just going down the rabbit hole of this grape and that grape and this wine and everything, and just trying to understand it.
So it was more the situation than any person. Because a lot of people in your seat have said this person, that person, influenced me. The circumstance, the restaurant, the guy doing the wine.
I must say, while still in Illinois, and Ray Timponi, who ran the restaurant there, certainly
embraced you?
I wouldn't say I was under his wing as much. I definitely learned a lot from him. But Thad Morrow, he had a restaurant called Bacaro in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, and was there for 10 years. And his spirit of hospitality and generosity was what really sparked the interest and really allowed it all to click. We would have family meal after dinner every day, and we would drink all the leftover wines by the glass. And he would cook food, and we'd sit out there and just have the most beautiful moment with your coworkers and drinking wine and food. And
that's the team building hospitality thing.
Yep.
That translates out on the floor.
For sure. And the amount of money he must have spent every day just drinking all the leftover wine was crazy, but that's how those environments allow you to learn.
Very cool. All right, so you're there at the couple of restaurants. I think
yep.
Senior year, you go to Paris?
Senior year, I did. I went to Paris. Thank you, teacher. And I wanted to find a job. It was somehow with the timing. My study abroad was actually the last semester of my undergraduate, career. So then I got to start working after that. So I was like, all right, if I'm going to be here in Paris, I got to find a job where I can transfer. And I knew I was moving to New York afterwards, from Paris to New York. One of the few that fit that criteria was Flute Champagne Lounge. There was a small location near the Arc de Triomphe in the 17th, and got a gig there as the Sunday American bartender guy, and worked maybe 4 months over there, 1 day a week, and then transferred over here. I was here for
same people there as here, or different?
Same owner. Yeah,
Flute New York, Flute Paris.
Yep, one guy, Hervé Rousseau, and worked in New York for about 4 months. The program here was a little less wine focused than the one in Paris, and after a meal at Danielle, kind of during my spring break actually of that semester before moving, I just got blown away by the service, the wine, the food, and I was like, I have to do this. And so I quickly joined the Dynex group after moving back to New York.
What level did you start at?
I applied for assistant sommelier at Danielle, and I was not nearly qualified enough, but they saw enough ambition, and they kind of threw me into the pool of workers that they would move around a little bit. And so my first, I guess, official title was, I was a captain at Bar Pléiade at the time.
Right.
And then
That's
kind of
the cafe, or
it's the bar next to Cafe Baloo.
Right.
And then went to DBGB for a little bit because they had somebody, some manager kind of hole that I had to fill.
But that was a big departure from the service at Danielle, DBGB, right?
Yes.
Wine list, food, environment.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And one of my first gigs in New York was on the Upper East Side, and you learn very quickly how New Yorkers work when you're working on the Upper East Side.
Right.
And and then I went straight to DBGB, and then it was really taking care of the GM, Pierre, who came in with the AGM at the time, just one night randomly after their service. I poured some champagne, did this and all that, and eventually a spot opened up at Danielle, and I was able to move up there, working a few different roles.
Nice. And you were in Florida for?
Yep. So I was
with the Dynex group?
With the Dynex group. I was working under Raj at Danielle for a while, who taught me very much. I owe much of my...
Raj is still there, right?
Yeah. Much of my career to him, and Daniel Jonas, of course. And after a year and a half at Danielle, doing a few different roles, Sam being one of them, I wanted to really kind of move up and take a more leadership role within a wine program. So the role at DB Bistro Moderne in Miami opened up, and I jumped at it and moved down there just for a little bit, about 6 months.
So it was more the opportunity than the geography.
Yeah. I just wanted
Not
to,
a bad place to go.
it was, and it was for the winter too, so it worked out very well.
That's great. So you're there how long?
I was there for about 6 months, enough to kind of let all the snow, come and go.
Right.
And then a gig opened up. Alex LaPratte had left DB Bistro in Midtown, so there was a hole to fill there, and I got to come back up and run the show in New York.
For how long?
So at that point, I would have been with the Dynex Group for about 3.5 years, and I was only there for 9 months in that particular role when an opportunity to join 11 Madison Park came up, and I was, I just kind of had to jump at that.
Yeah. How do you?
Yeah.
That's sort of top of the game.
Yeah.
And the job was work on the floors of sommelier.
Floor som, yeah.
Who was there? Dustin?
I was under Dustin, yep.
Right. And you were there a couple of years.
Yep, 2 years.
So you got a pretty heavy dose of what real and good hospitality is.
I would say so. I mean, yeah, Dynex has a really good way of going about things. 11 Madison Park does it, of course, in a different but still similar way.
Right.
And it was really nice to see also just even within the Dynex Group, the Upper East to downtown to the global clientele at Danielle to Miami, and really get a good mix of everything.
So you do a couple of years at 11 Madison, which is a pretty good stint, and then what happens?
I knew I kind of wanted to get into more entrepreneurial role within the wine industry, probably running my own wine bar. And a mutual friend that I had met in Paris actually introduced me to the partners at Experimental Group, who has Compagnie here, and it had been open for a year prior to my joining, and a really really interesting opportunity to kind of come in and take it over.
Did you know of the place?
I had been there actually, with that same friend.
Okay.
When it opened, and I came and I enjoyed it. I was like, wow, this is a beautiful
Cool spot.
and
Yeah.
But something about it, I guess, just never really clicked with the local market, and people, it kind of just fell off the radar really quickly. And I knew that was kind of like a blessing and a curse, but I was willing to take that risk and get in there. And
So that was what, 2014?
that was March of 14.
That's when you started
Or I
there?
guess 50. So I did all of 15, all of 16. This is my second year now.
Right. All right, so we're going to come back towards the end of the interview and talk about that, because there's a lot going on there. But I want to talk to you about a lot of different things about wine. You said stuff like your favorite wine. I like wines with a story, a wine that's made by a person that speaks of place and time. You've called farmers rock stars. You look at a wine list as a playlist. So you have a philosophy on wine. I mean, what is that philosophy? I mean, how do you see wine?
I mean, I see the wines that excite me the most are, as you mentioned, wines made by a person that speak of a place and time, and whether that's in Roussillon, France, or it's in Basket Range, Australia. I think if you taste the wine and you kind of know a little bit of the story, it should kind of open up more of a story about that. For wine's not made in a vacuum. It's made by it's the fourth element of terroir. You have like macroclimate, microclimate, soil, geography, but humans are a huge component of it. It doesn't happen naturally. And we'll get
It's
to
an
that.
agricultural product,
Yes.
and there's human interaction.
Exactly.
Or the less intervention, the better.
Yes, and hopefully you can taste all of those components, and the best wines for me do have all of those components that you can talk about.
So does that mean a lot of the big Bordeaux's and a lot of these, bigger famous wines, they're just not doing that? The story doesn't match up to what interests you and what you're looking for?
For me, it's there's I feel like there's a place and time for almost every wine on the market. I'm not saying that they're all going to be exciting.
And I didn't say you did.
Right, exactly. But the story that some wines tell isn't exactly for me a story that people really want to listen to. You know what I mean?
Right.
And whether it's not necessarily it's a bad wine or a good wine, but some movies are selling out and some aren't. They could be both great movies, and
Right.
Some fill up the seats.
Critically acclaimed, no audience.
Precisely.
Shitty movie.
Yeah.
Big, whatever.
9.5% alcohol,
Right.
red wine.
So it's really about the people, the story, the land, the terroir.
For me, I think a sommelier is a translator of the winemaker, and preferably a farmer. And it's weird because if you take your vacation, you go visit a winery, you're out in the fields, and then you come back to this urban area, and you have to somehow try to tell that story of where you were and why this wine tastes like this. And I think that's, for me, the most exciting part.
And the translation part is you're the key to exposing people to regions and certain wines that they may not necessarily get in other places. And, we'll get to that. This is a good segue for me because I want to talk about natural wines, natural, organic, biodynamic. And we'll get a little into the definitions and all that. But why has interest grown in the past few years like it hasn't in the years previous to that?
I mean, if I can take 1 minute maybe to kind of, for me, tell the story of natural wine that I envision, which is, it started in the early 1900s in the Languedoc region of France. There was the farmers who were kind of revolting against a lot of the negociants who were pouring sugar into their wines. And they were saying, vive les vins nature, which is essentially just like, don't pour stuff into my wine. This was even before the...
So a guy would toil and make a great wine, and the negociant would just screw it up by sweetening it.
Or just, yeah, exactly. I mean, they would just add unnecessary sugar.
So the product that went to the consumer was different than what the guy envisioned and farmed. And
Precisely.
Okay.
Precisely. And that was, they had a bit of an uprising. And so the first term that natural wine was associated with was just adding sugar to wine. This was, again, before the chemical revolution of the 40s, so this is of course with organic viticulture, but then in the 80s kind of became this new organic movement, post all of the chemical fertilizers and herbicides and all that, and that happened in the food movement as well as the wine movement, and that started kind of more in Beaujolais, Loire with Jules Chauvet, and kind of really coming up with ways to make natural wine, the methods.
So are you saying around the 80s, a little before, whatever, that's when it really ramped up, when they were using pesticides and
50s, 60s, 70s was when it was everywhere.
It got hit hard.
That was what people did. It was Tuesday at noon, you go out there and you spray the vineyard.
But before that, and even during that, there were people that didn't practice that.
For sure, yeah. There were some people who were like, we don't need this.
Right.
Our grapes are healthy.
Right.
But yeah, really with the 80s, 90s, and kind of 2000s, this resurgence of interest in organic, whether it's apples or grapes or whatever, starts to come, and food leads wine, and then I think wine has just really started in the last maybe 10 years, people really getting, the big hullabaloo around natural wines and organic wines and everything.
So there is definitely a discernible period of time. I mean, in the last 8-10 years, the traction definitely is as big or bigger than ever before that, right?
Totally.
Even though they existed. And guys like you and bars like you, really went out there and cheerleaded for it.
Well, so here's one thing that I have to mention now, because it's an interesting story that I feel like still hasn't really been told. Compagnie Vins Surnaturels was opened in Paris about 5-6 years ago.
Right, you didn't say that earlier.
Right. So the partners, they had cocktail bars, restaurants, now they have hotels and everything, and I love their philosophy, which is why I joined them. But they also, this was like the height of kind of the natural wine movement in Paris, and you and me have both tasted a lot of really bad natural wine, in quotes. And there were a lot of bars that were just pouring a lot of very bad natural wine, and under the guise of, well, there's nothing in it, so it has to be good. And there can still be a lot of faults in it, even though there's no chemicals or whatever. So they wanted to open up a supernatural, kind of beyond classification wine bar where you can just go have really good wine, politics aside, And that's really the ethos that I try to embody here in New York. And yes, the vast majority...
So the name Supernatural, I mean, that followed through their vision into the name and all that?
For sure. And, while the vast majority of our producers are practicing organic or biodynamic, because I think those can help make better wines, it's not because of this, then that.
Right.
And really for us, it's the wine in the glass has to be good first, and then we'll work our way backwards.
So this is a perfect time to ask you this. So there's the whole sustainability aspect, where people are taking care of the land and, they're not using pesticides. I don't want to talk about that. You've probably tasted as much or more different organic, biodynamic, natural wines than anybody. You tell me how natural wines differ in taste than regular wines. It's such a big general question, but there definitely has to be, and the word energy comes up or whatever, but what is it? And it's a big box because different regions, different varietals and all that.
I mean, I think the most succinct term I can use is volatile. There's more volatility in a natural wine, in quotes, versus a much more stable conventional wine.
What do you mean by volatility? It could go bad, or
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah,
because it's not intervene with sulfurs or whatever other stuff.
it's the flavors are a little bit more spread out. You have more biological activity inside the bottle. You have more living, organisms making all of their little smells and everything inside there.
It could be funky.
Yeah, exactly.
Good funky.
Good, yeah. I mean, it's like kombucha. I mean, there are living organisms inside a bottle of kombucha, whereas in most conventional wines, everything's kind of been stabilized. There's not as much living. And in most natural wines, there's still a lot of life literally inside the bottle, and that comes with, some
So that is that
flavors
liveliness, energy. Now, how does that affect a winemaker that makes the same wine every year? I know vintage by vintage varies, but when you have that variable in there, I mean, is there such a sway with natural wines that you could pick one up and it's so different from, a previous vintage?
100%. I mean,
More than other wines.
much more so than other wines. There are some wines where I can pull the trigger and I know I'm going to put it on the list every single year. Usually those are not the natural wines that we feature. The more natural ones, and when they're good, they're incredible. You just can't even duplicate it. And that's the problem with vintage to vintage. I literally have to taste all these every single year before I can commit to them, because one year they're great, the next year there's some weird biological activity happening, and I can't put that in front of a guest because it just doesn't deliver me the same pleasure.
So you have to keep your eye out.
You got to be very vigilant.
Excuse me, to what's going on there.
Yeah.
So the most obvious reason is that regular wines are chemically treated.
Well, I mean, I don't want to throw too many people under the bus, because there's a lot of great wines out there that are conventional, so to speak, that aren't really, there's not necessarily a whole lot of additions happening.
Right.
So I mean,
And they're not under the category, but they're made low intervention and all that.
but yeah, there are more stabilizers you can add. Sulfur is one of them. That's a pretty common one, and I think sulfur is overly vilified because there's more sulfur in a box of raisins than there is in a case of wine.
Right.
So I mean,
It's not the end of the world.
it's definitely not the end of the world,
Yeah.
but it does suppress biological activity inside the bottle,
Right.
one way or the other.
Which is what. So, give a pitch to my listeners. Why should they buy natural wines? Why should they look for them and pay attention? I'm not saying their whole collection or from here on drink that, but definitely introduce it. What are they going to get? I mean, and we're talking, it's made in Austria and France and Italy, so we're talking everywhere. But what is buying natural wines? I mean, what's exciting about?
For me, I mean, what I love about wine is the hunt of the next great wine, the next great region, the next great vintage, even from the same producers that you know. And with natural wine, you do have this hunt. It's never ending, and it's even a little bit more complex. But the flavors that you can get out of some of these wines are so unique and precious and intense sometimes, especially when they're good wines, that it's worth the search, and it's worth taking the risk, and it's worth finding. For me, it's worth finding a great retail store or restaurant that's going to source these things for you and developing that relationship where they can introduce them to you. You'll save a lot more money because you're kind of getting them pre-selected, and they're weeding out the bad ones and only focusing on the good ones.
So if you're inquisitive, you're up for the hunt, you're up to try different things, you're going to experience a variety of wines that you won't necessarily see, in Bordeaux's or Burgundies or whatever.
Yeah, and they're going to be made in, they're smaller production wines typically. And, for me, the wine lover is the same person who is willing to travel to any part of the world and just see something unique.
Right.
Just because it exists,
Right.
And there's the viticultural aspect. I mean, this is human culture we're talking about.
Have you traveled much in the last 2-3 years? Do you try to get out of the States and meet winemakers? And
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I try
for Compagnie and for yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think I've taken a vacation in the last 8 years that wasn't wine related in some way. I was just in the basket range of Adelaide Hills in South Australia back in January, where, I mean, that's probably one of the most special tiny wine regions I've ever been to, with, just passionate people making really great wines.
Are they natural, non-intervention?
They're very, very low intervention. It's really tough in the New World because you have this separation of grower and producer, and it's not a lot of vertical integration like there is in Europe, where you own the domain, your family's had it for generations, you control all the viticulture. Here it's somebody has the land and they put some grapes in, and now they're up for sale, and maybe the person buying the grapes can say, hey, next year can you farm organically, please? I'd really like to sell an organic wine to my customers. But it's a little bit harder. But they're pushing the director. If they're not already organic, they're pushing the growers to go organic, and they're definitely doing things hands off in the cellar, and they're making some great wines at very reasonable prices that I think are super relevant to the entire world.
That sounds good. And you're the guy that'll look out for them and bring them in.
Precisely.
Tell me quickly, outside of France, because I know on your wine list it's a very Franco-skewing list, and we'll talk about that. Tell me some exciting wine regions. I think you just answered it with Australia. Give me one or two other places that are like that.
I think, you have Galicia. There's some really great Mencias happening in Ribera Sacra. Nothing really
Spain?
New. It's in Spain.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of green Spain.
And Ribera Sacra is the grape? Or
Ribera Sacra is the region.
The region.
Mm-hmm. And you have a lot of Mencia up there. Mencia.
That's the grape?
Yeah.
Mencia?
That's correct.
Okay.
And a lot of the, and they're planted on very steep slopes overlooking usually, the Atlantic Ocean or kind of the river in between. There's a lot of valleys and things there. And typically old vines, it's things that you would never replant today. It doesn't make any economic sense. But they're just exquisite, and they're just this homage to history because they've just been there forever.
Are they reasonably priced?
They are. That's the best thing about it.
So it's a great wine, an interesting story, and you're not paying through the nose. Give me another.
I think Swartland, South Africa.
That's sort of a little natural commune.
Kind of a tiny little, it's it's kind of the Bushwick of.
What's the grape or grapes they're growing there and vinting?
Great Chenin Blancs and great Syrahs. Really just world class. I've had from there, and
stylistically, like Loire Chenins, or
I haven't had too many New World Chenin Blancs that actually, for me, remind me of Loire Chenin Blancs. They honestly usually remind me more of Chardonnay. There's typically a little bit of new oak, or there's just a little bit more of this roundness to them, and not quite that piercing, bright acidity that you get in the Loire. But they're still very pleasurable wines in and of themselves, and it's an interesting, different take on Chenin Blanc as we know it.
Right, which is interesting in itself.
Which is, such a great, multifaceted grape. The Syrahs, however, I found to be a little bit more reminiscent of the Northern Rhone.
So they're big and chewy and
extremely aromatic, perfumey, pretty, peppery. You could put it in front of most people, and they'll say it's Saint Joseph or Crozes Hermitage from a great producer.
So Swartland, South Africa, Ribera Sacra, Sacra, not de. And which part of Australia were you talking about?
Very specifically, the Basket Range in the Adelaide Hills.
Adelaide Hills. Okay. What excites you more, red or white wines?
I definitely drink much more white wine.
Why?
I think it's just more refreshing.
It isn't like red, the deal. That's where all the complexity and history, the Burgundies, the Bordeaux, the Penfold Granges, all this stuff. And, white, there's a handful of that. It's you're caught up more in refreshment and taste.
Whites are definitely more subtle. Reds are a little more, they kind of can hit you over the head. But I think it's much easier to make a good red than a good white.
So by habit, you are drinking more white wine?
White and sparkling and rosé.
All right, so why don't people think of champagne as wine? Why? More and more. We talk about it on this show all the time. There's a lot of cheerleaders. I know that you have it on your wine list at reasonable rates, so you're obvious. Why don't people think of it? You're doing your little part in changing that, but what do you think it is? You have friends that are not wine geeks but like to drink it and they don't think of it. What do we tell these people?
I think the Champenois have done a very good job of branding themselves as their own thing, which is kind of what they wanted. Now I think you have this newer generation of winemakers in Champagne who are really trying to make wine first and the bubbles second.
Are those the grower guys?
Those are definitely more the growers.
Okay.
They're focusing on single vineyards, parcels, micro vinifications, really small production, and in order to put champagne on the label, they have to put some bubbles in it.
Right.
But they really want the base wine to be a fantastic wine, and then they get to make an even better wine through secondary fermentation.
Right. So you
That's
don't
the
have that
philosophy.
house style. It's each vineyard has their own terroir and style, and there's interesting output and all.
Precisely.
Of that. When you look at champagne, are you just as excited at other sparklers, Cremant, Pet Nat, the grower we just talked about, Cavas? I mean, are those?
I love all sparkling. I mean, I don't say every single sparkling wine in the world.
You
but
like bubbles?
I love bubbles, and I think when they're done very well, they don't have to be very expensive. I mean, champagne can be a little pricey, but I mean, there's some great champagnes that
Give me one or two. Let's go brand.
Champagne or non-sparkling.
Let's go champagne, and let's go 50 up or down a few bucks.
I mean, if you can find it, Barèche et Fils.
Bereche.
Yep.
Fils
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Barèche et Fils.
is about a $50 killer bottle of champagne.
Yeah, even less. I mean, you can walk into a couple stores. I mean, New York, it's going to be hard, but like any other market that has it, it'll probably be sitting on the shelf, and you can grab it for about $45.
Give me one more.
Grognet has been a really
Spell.
Grongnet, Grognet.
Grognet. That helps. Okay.
They're a member of the Special Club, which is like a small producer, small club with like 27 grower producers, kind of like peer-reviewed wines. They put some of their best wines in this uniform bottle label, and they market it. One of the best deals, not necessarily the Special Club, that's not quite $50, but just their intro Blanc de Blanc could probably sit on a shelf for around $45.
It's a great story, too.
Yeah.
What about non-champagne? I mean, is Cremant, is that a good...
Cremants, there can be some incredible Cremants. We just discovered...
That's Alsatian?
Well, there's pretty much every major wine region in France can have a Cremant from there, even
Okay.
Bordeaux.
Okay.
Cremant de Jura, I think, de Mentiso's, Cremant de Jura's rival some of the,
That's from
some
the
of the best
Jura
champagnes.
region?
Yeah, from the
Okay,
Jura region.
Jura.
Using the same grapes as Champagne, Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. And there's some great pet nats, the Les Capriades, Capriades, in Touraine and the Loire. They make the best pet nat I've ever had. I mean,
So as a trained wine drinker, and I've had people explain the difference between pet nat,
Sure.
fermentation versus champagne. Just tell me, in your opinion, the difference between a really good pet nat and a good champagne. What bubble size, dryness, sweetness? What's the difference?
well, oftentimes, so pet nats are, pet nat stands for Pétillant Naturel,
Right.
which is the method ancestral way of making sparkling wine versus the method champenoise. Essentially, method ancestral, you're bottling wines that aren't done fermenting off of their primary sugar and yeast. In champagne, you take a finished wine, stable wine, bone dry, you put it back in the bottle, and you add yeast and you add sugar, which has its own ups and downs. But that's the way you make champagne. There are two distinct fermentations, both finishing to completion. In pet nat or method ancestral, you're starting fermentation in one place, you're pouring it into a bottle, you're capping it off, and you're finishing fermentation there.
So technically, it's fermented out of the bottle.
It starts out of the bottle.
Out of the bottle,
typically,
right.
yeah.
I got it.
And then you'll have 1.5% or so alcohol to go. Throw it into bottle, and the same yeast and the same sugar that were already present, which is why I think you're finding this resurgence, because you're not adding sugar.
Right.
You're just dealing with what the grapes gave it.
Right.
And then stylistically, just because you had asked, usually bigger bubbles in pet nat. It's a little bit less refined. Pet nats can also be variable in terms of sweetness and dryness, just because it's not exactly an exact science. It's a little more.
Well, it's
of
what
an
we were
art.
talking about earlier. Each bottle, vintage. It's sort of a different party in each bottle, and
Yeah.
that's kind of why you do it. With champagne, you get the style, or
It's much more systematic in champagne for sure.
all right. I want to switch over to Compagnie. A lot of stuff going on there. Let's talk about that for a minute. But I picked up somewhere, and tell me if this is something you want to talk about. You're working on a wine education app. Is that like a secret, or is that too small of a project to waste my time with, or what?
There
what
are
do you want
still a lot of variable. There's still a lot of variables yet to be determined in that, so I can't really talk too much about it.
Okay,
but
can
we
you
do-
talk about the objective, or that
Yeah.
would reveal too much?
No. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we're definitely proud of what we're doing. We want to demystify wine a little bit and give people. I mean, the amount of times people are like, "Oh, I really want to learn more about wine," let's give them the tools to do that. And we partnered with people who are very good at teaching people things. So they specialize in that. We specialize in wine. We're kind of putting those two together. They have the systems, we have the knowledge, and kind of just really trying to streamline it. So
that's
stay tuned.
Demystify is a word we use in describing this show. This show's for the consumer. We want people to walk away and not say what,
right,
but maybe walk away with 2-3 recommendations from you or really understand the difference. And,
absolutely.
You'll let us know when that happens.
And we also use the phrase actually to bring the wine to the people, bring the people to the wine. So
ours is we bring wine to the people.
Precisely, yeah.
Service mark. All right, let's talk about Compagnie.
Sure.
So you opened, what'd you say, in 14 or 15? Or no, they opened in 14, you got there in
Precisely.
15. All right, so give me the mission statement. I mean, you got there, and I'm sure you changed things, and what you want to do when you walk in there, you want to accomplish what with the customer?
I mean, I want the guests to come in and have one of their best wine experiences they've ever had in their lives. And
that's by way of what? What are the 3-4 things that, deals that to the customer?
So, I mean, just starting with, basic things that we changed, a happy hour. We take $5 off every single wine by the glass. So you can really come in and we, by the way, our by the glass menu changes all the time. Like we reprint probably 2 or 3 times a week, buying, putting on even just like a few bottles here and there just to share.
So your wine list, you switch it up every few weeks.
Oh,
so you got the regulars, and there's always going to be new stuff on, a few things off, and all of that.
Exactly. So first, we want to kind of tantalize with the changing options. We want people to know that they can come there and taste something new and something delicious, something we've been tasting recently that we're excited about.
What kind of bottle count are you holding?
Oh gosh,
600-700 bottles. Different
on the list. Different references probably. Yeah.
And the list is what, 20-30 pages?
It's about 20. Yeah, we've been growing it, so about 20. Yeah, precisely.
And it is predominantly French.
Predominantly French. I mean, that's my palate.
Within French, where's the biggest play?
Burgundy and Champagne, and then Loire, and some micro regions that we focus on, like Calce and Roussillon, Calce. It's
right.
A town of 200 people. And
Roussillon, Languedoc.
Yeah. So specifically Roussillon, which is French Catalonia. I mean, culturally, it's its own sort of thing. And there's a town there with 200 people, and there are 6 extremely high-quality winemakers.
Really?
Different domains present here in New York. I mean, for me, that's just crazy. That blows my mind.
So you're showing that included 600 different choices, you're saying, or 500-600?
Total, yeah. France, Italy, Spain,
Now,
Australia.
we didn't talk about Burgundy much, but Burgundy's heavy on the list because that's what the market wants to see and drink too.
It's Burgundy was one of my first loves. It's something I just went there for the first time actually with Daniel Jonas and the La Palais Scholarship, which was an amazing honor and opportunity.
Were you a La Palais Scholarship recipient?
Yep.
Oh, you were. Good for you.
Yeah, thank you. It was. I literally had been waiting to go for years.
Right.
I was like, I'm not even going to Beaujolais just in case that counts. And that was just so eye-opening. And I've always loved Burgundy, and it's always been, a rabbit hole I've loved going into.
Right.
But people just want to drink it now, especially Chablis, higher acid whites, fresh mineral styles, reds. People love. Beaujolais is definitely a growing portion on our list right now. A lot of the Burgundy is certainly more.
So when we say Beaujolais,
stuff.
Beaujolais is a region of Burgundy. And people don't always they associate it with that Thanksgiving crap and all that. There's some good Beaujolais being made. Gamay is a great grape.
Oh my gosh, there's some incredible Beaujolais being made. There's a lot of Beaujolais that are selling for more than Burgundies now. I mean, we're gonna in 10-15 years we're going to be having to find a new region to talk about.
Now's the time to buy that and Barolo before it goes up too high.
For sure.
So a good play on Burgundy is Beaujolais. And what else? Like Bourguignons?
Yeah, we have a lot, some Bourgogne Rouge. Really great just producers, like their entry level.
Right.
Of course, it's the Pinot Noir from France and the original Pinot Noir,
and
if you will.
Curate. The stuff I assume you're carrying is the stuff that you like and tastes, And
we think over-delivers for the price and gives it, tremendous value. And also just tracking down the really hard-to-find producers and letting people know that they can come drink them there.
Right.
Ravenot, Rumier, Meunier.
So besides looking for all these new producers, natural guys. All the heavy hitters are there too. You just mentioned a few. Tell me what, and tell me if I'm pronouncing it right. Enomatic wine machine is?
Sure.
Enomatic?
Yeah, Enomatic, it kind of came on the market before Coravin did, but essentially it's like a massive Coravin, and it puts wines on draft, so to speak.
So tell people what a Coravin is.
So
it's a way...
Essentially it's like a draft beer system, but you're using argon instead of carbon dioxide to push out the wine, and argon is heavier than air. And preserve it, yeah. So argon flushes into the bottle, you pop the bottle, you put a little tube in, and you push the piston up, and it kind of creates a nice seal with the gasket, and then it flushes the bottle with argon. So argon's heavier than air. Air is really the enemy, oxygen to wine. So argon is neutral, and it sits on top of the wine and doesn't interact with wine. And then you press a couple different buttons, you push out a couple different sizes, and it preserves the wine. Now, we don't have a ton of crazy expensive wines by the glass. We have some everywhere from $10 to $25.
It's a chance for you to...
It's a way for us to kind of at least slow down the oxidation process and allow all the wines to be served within their time frame and to not go bad.
Right.
But for me, it's really more the temperature, which is I think a massive thing. I mean, all of our wines,
the way it's served
by the glass, by the bottle, are stored and served at the appropriate temperature, so to speak.
All right, so we're gonna take a break in a few minutes,
sure.
But we're gonna do a lightning round here, and I think a lot of what we're gonna talk about in this lightning round defines Compagnie. So I'm going to throw stuff at you, and I want you to tell me what it is. I think you're still doing it. So let's talk about it.
Sure.
Somakase. So omakase is chef's choice in Japanese. You preceded it with som, so it's a wine. Tell me what you're doing somakase now?
All day, every day.
Tell me what somakase. You go into Compagnie.
I want a somakase, $60.
Tell me what it is.
It's essentially a bespoke wine tasting. A sommelier omakase, where you can put your entire trust in us, and we'll bring you some great wines that we're excited about. Or you can say, I usually like full-bodied reds.
A little, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Bring me some full-bodied reds that that you're excited about too. So.
And the point of entry, cost-wise, is?
So it kind of came from a tasting menu sort of philosophy where, you kind of either got locked in at a certain price. And it's just a way to really just get the pesky idea of price out of the way. 30, 60, or 90 is what we do.
So 3 choices.
Exactly. And then within that,
how many wines are we tasting?
Usually about 4 to 5 at each level.
That's a very cool way with a wine list like that.
Yeah.
With people that are passionate to get some good wines in front
Absolutely.
of you. All right. Guess the wine.
Yeah, so we have a mystery wine. That's not a program I started, but it's one I inherited and love. I wasn't sure how people were going to respond to it, but people they love it. They sit down and, whether you're in the industry or not, like, oh, mystery wine, guess the wine, win the bottle. And New Yorkers are very competitive.
So it's something on the list.
It's in the full wine list, under $100, and it's an open book test.
And you say, give me a glass of mystery wine.
Yep.
Pay whatever it is.
$15 all the time.
And if you guess what the wine is.
Yep, you win a bottle of it.
And what kind of success rates are we talking here?
We have, it varies, but I would say we have about 2 to 3 winners every month.
Okay. Yeah, because I was kind of tracking it, and I'm like, Jesus, some Moroccan wine or something you poured? It's like, you're killing us here,
But 2 people guessed it literally in the same day.
I saw that. I saw 2.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's one. All right, you do a thing called mixtape.
Yeah, sommelier mixtape or wine mixtape. We actually have chef mixtape, too. So this was a way, for me, it was an anti-wine dinner. So rather than going to a wine dinner with the winemaker and tasting all of their wines, this was a way to have the winemaker pour the wines that inform their palate or wine personality. And it's really the wines that they're excited about, maybe a couple that tell their personal story or projects they're working on. Larry Stone did one recently, and he poured a couple of his lingua franca, but he also poured some
other stuff that he was excited
Northern
to...
Rhones and pet nats and all, some crazy stuff. And
so it's DJ and wine.
Yeah, and there's a music component.
Mixtape.
So I have them say,
is the music component controlled by you or the host?
I curate from their selection.
Okay,
just to keep it on brand.
You do like a food music pairing.
Precisely.
All right. Humbled, HUMBL, capital ED.
Yes. So this was very much inspired by Dan Barber's Wasted sort of idea, and we wanted to work with one farm, one season, and just kind of make an entire menu out of what you can go there and get. So rather than going to the farmer's market and just picking up what they want to sell, we go visit the farm and we try to look outside of the normal fields and we say, hey, what else is growing out here? What are you not necessarily bringing to market, but that you grow? And the idea was, if we were stuck on the farm and we had to make a meal with only the ingredients that were around us, what would we do? And that's what we try to do.
Very cool. And you do that how often?
Usually we try to do once a season, so try for 4 times a year.
Okay. Towards the end of the show, we'll talk to people about websites and mailing lists and all that stuff. All right, last thing, you have 30 seconds. You've done and you will do theme parties.
Yeah.
What have you done? What are you going to do?
So last year we did Jurassic Park Pop-Up NYC.
Okay.
Which essentially was a Jura-themed, dino-themed wine party. And we invited people to dress up as dinosaurs or their Jurassic Park movie favorite movie character. And we just opened up a ton of crazy Jura wine, had some fun past hors d'oeuvres, as we like to call them. And we're doing another one this year, and I want to bring this to the whole world. So I'm trying to partner with a bunch of different wine bars and restaurants from Melbourne, Australia, to Paris, to Austin, Texas.
One night, multiple
on the same
locations.
Night. June 25th is what we're shooting for now, so stay tuned.
And it's called Jurassic.
So this is going to be called Jurassic World Global Pop-Up.
Cool idea. All right, we're talking to Caleb Ganzer from Compagnie downtown in New York City. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we get back, we're going to subject Caleb to our wine list, and then we're running out of time, so we're going to zoom through the wine list, and then Caleb is going to try to guess our weekly wine sip. You're listening to The Grape Nation on Heritage Radio Network. We'll be right back.
I don't think there's anybody worthy to run this company but the people who built it. I have employees who've been with me for more than 30 years, and plus. Each and every one of them deserves to be an owner. That's just the way it ought to be, and that's just the way it is.
This is Bob Moore. He and his wife Charlie started Bob's Red Mill almost 4 decades ago. Today they offer one of the largest lines of organic whole grain foods in the country. And in 2010, on his 81st birthday, Bob gifted ownership of the company to his employees.
I'd received plenty of offers to buy my company over the years, but selling out never felt like the right thing to do. When the time comes to let someone else run this show, I can't imagine selling it to a stranger. Giving the company to my hardworking employees just feels right.
The company now has an employee stock ownership plan, or ESOP. Stock is put in a retirement plan for all of its employees. When employees retire, the company buys back their shares. According to the National Center for Employee Ownership, about 11,000 companies in the U.S. currently run as ESOPs.
It just shows how much faith and trust Bob has in us.
That's Bo Thomas, the company's engineer and maintenance superintendent. He's been with Bob's Red Mill for over 27 years and has put his 4 children through college in the process.
For all of us, it's more than just a job. And obviously, it's the same way for Bob, too.
Bob is still very active in the company. He's the president and CEO, and you'll find him working at the mill just about every day. Because when you love something this much, you want to be a part of it.
Well, I may have given them the company, but the boss part is still mine.
Bob's Red Mill is committed to sharing only the freshest, best-tasting whole grain foods on the planet. Learn more about their mission of good food for all at bobsredmill.com/podcast.
All right, we're back. We're back with our guest, Caleb Ganzer, wine director and managing partner at Compagnie on Center Street, downtown in New York, in Soho. All right, Caleb, you got to work with me. We got to work quick. We're going to do our wine list, and then we're going to taste a little wine, and I'm going to send you back to work.
Sounds good.
So, first question on the wine list. What are you drinking now? I don't mean that glass of beer in front of you. What do you keep going back to? Is it seasonal? Are you trying?
Gosh,
I told you to go fast.
I know this is like that question that everybody always asks me and never have a good answer to. Pet nats, we always try to have a good pet nat on. That's probably one of the first things I'll pour for myself.
All right. Give me your favorite wine and food pairing, your personal one. Not what you like to serve, not what people request, but what's comfort to you?
one of the best memories I had with food and wine that I love repeating is I had a Crottin de Chevignon in the Sancerre center of town with a glass of white Sancerre.
So Sancerre is a white region of France.
In the Loire Valley with Sauvignon Blanc as the grape.
Right.
And a very mineral Sauvignon Blanc with a really kind of acidic, kind of chalky goat cheese. It's just...
Which is made in that area,
too. Area. It's just one of those, like, perfect...
Just a natural...
That's
a good one.
Together.
All right, besides Compagnie, give me your favorite wine restaurant and or bar.
I'm going to do Manhattan and Brooklyn. Rouge Tomate.
You could do Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Paris if you remember.
Sure.
I mean, people love to hear this. All right, so Manhattan.
I think Rouge Tomate. I think Pascaline's list is incredible, and it's a really fun list to drink off of. Both classics and kind of new stuff. Reynard, I thought I've just spent more time and money there than I just think it's such a great restaurant that changes all the time, very focused and curated.
In Brooklyn,
in Williamsburg. Yeah.
What about Brooklyn? Oh, no, you said Reynard, Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Now, can you recall anything from Paris? Traveling or from the old days?
Ventre. It just opened.
Spell it.
Marco Pelletier, Vantre. He was the chef sommelier at Le Bristol for quite a while. And his connections with winemakers and his knowledge of wines, what's happening today, is truly incredible. You won't necessarily go there and drink Ravenot, but you'll drink Francois Ravenot's favorite winemaker in Chablis.
Well,
and that
cool.
is cool.
So that's sort of a hot tip because that's a new place, right?
Brand new. It's already pretty hard to get into, but
Vantre.
Ventre.
All right. Give me your favorite all-time wine. Was it a birth wine? Is it the wine that got you into wine? Is it something you had in your wine travels that stopped you in your tracks?
I think one of the most exemplary wine moments I had, and certainly one of the first aha moments, and for many reasons I love this story because it was in Chicago. It was at Charlie Trotter's. It was like my 22nd birthday. I saved a bunch of money up and went, and we just had the full tasting menu. We opted for the high-end wine pairings, right? And it was one of the first restaurants to go really big on, great vintages of Burgundy and Bordeaux. And they had, this is before prices got crazy.
Right.
So with the high-end wine pairing and the meal, it's, $500 or something, but they were pouring 1982 Aubryon by the glass.
Great vintage year.
I mean, that's a $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 bottle of wine now.
Is Aubryon a first growth?
Yeah.
So it's a first growth vintage year, expensive.
One of the best years. And
it delivered to you?
It was incredible. It was with, some Painted Hills Farm or whatever beef and
right.
1 carrot with some jus, but it was just that moment was really special.
So in 1982, Aubryon. All right, that's a good one. All right, last question, and you may have answered it with favorite wine restaurant and our bar, but it may give you a chance to expand it. Who else out there, because the reason I brought you in here is I think you're doing it well, but who else out there is doing it well as a wine person and a wine place? Pascaline's a good example. Rouge Tomate's a great place. Pascaline's a great personality. Here's a chance.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, Jeff Kellogg came to New York at Maialino and just destroyed that list. I mean,
great Italian list.
Bought, the champagne that he could put on for the prices, the old Barolo, the old Amaro. I mean, he just really had fun and celebrated the wines that restaurant focused on, and just brought it to the people. And
champagne's great with pizza too.
Great with pizza, and I just think he did a great job at Maialino. And now he's going to be, I think, at the Four Seasons, the new opening,
the Carbone guys.
Yeah, so I mean, I was very much inspired by what he did there.
Yeah, give me one more.
I mean, I love what's happening nowadays in New York with champagne prices getting quite more reasonable. His name's Matthew. He's running the program at Del Posto right now, and he's dropping prices over there and making some champagnes very reasonably priced.
So, back to our conversation before a little. Why aren't people drinking champagne? Now you got people that are really starting to cheerlead it and bring it on the list, right?
It's one of those things that, when I was working at the restaurants I was working at, we had massive champagne lists. Not many people would ever really pull the trigger on it. And I was always like, "Why? We have such great producers and vintages." And, yeah, it's a little expensive and not a lot of people get it. So people don't really drink it, but industry drinks it. I mean, we're the ones out there, I think, pulling the trigger on a lot of these expensive bottles. And,
Yep. Nice to hear.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to finish the show with our last segment, the Weekly Wine Sip. Every week we taste a different wine on the air. Usually I will tell you what it is, but, after sitting with Caleb for about an hour, you peg him as a pretty smart guy, passionate. Let's see if he could deliver. So I brought a wine. Excuse me, I'm moving around. I brought a wine in for Caleb. It's nothing fancy. It's readily available. Price, region, and all of that. And we're going to taste it. And I'm going to see if Caleb could tell us what it is. And then we will reveal it to you. And it should be a good wine.
This is definitely a taste of my own medicine. People
You know what?
the mystery wine all the time.
I didn't set you up here, I promise you. All right, so we're looking at a red wine, first of all. Pretty dark, deep purple. I'll
Yep.
give the description. Give me the color. Dark.
It's I would say dark ruby purple with violet hues.
Give me the nose.
These plastic cups are.
They're not helping you, but you got to
I'm
improvise.
swirling. Yeah, exactly. I get it. I mean, it's a lot of black fruits, like pretty like blackberry jam, and it's definitely on the more confiture kind of jammy sort of flavors.
Definitely black fruits. All right, let's throw it over the tongue. Anything else on the nose?
It's pretty straightforward on the nose.
Mouthfeel, medium
pleasant.
body,
Um,
light, medium.
medium plus,
All right. Give me some palate descriptors.
The nose kind of transfers to the palate, so you have that blackberry kind of, almost black currant jam. It's not sweet, but it just has that texture of jam and jelly. Maybe some black plum, but definitely get on the black fruit profile. Not necessarily a ton of complexity, but it is pleasant. It's not inoffensive, or it is inoffensive.
Give me a region.
Gosh.
Stop it. Come on. I didn't ask you that. What's the region?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of regions.
Give me your guess.
California.
Really? All right, so we'll do the reveal now. I'll hand you the bag. You can open it up. I'll read it to the audience. So we're tasting a 2015, so it's young, Michel Chapoutier, Les Vins de Bila Haute, Côte de Roussillon, Village.
Yep.
The wine is made by, and help me here, the wine's made by a well-known Rhone producer, right?
Yep.
I mean, his wheelhouse is more Rhone.
For sure.
And this wine retails for $12 to $15.
Yeah.
At better wine stores. You're not going to walk into a crappy wine store and see this. What else can you tell me about this wine?
I mean, so Michel Chapoutier makes this wine. The Bila Haute is his Roussillon Languedoc project. I think he's what he's doing is a really good thing, and working in areas that have a little bit more, a lot of growers, but a lot of hard way. They don't have like the best ways to find the markets. So he's helping a lot of those grapes find a market and putting some really high quality stuff into bottles at reasonable prices. It's hard to taste the wine and find all the complexity again in this particular vessel. Right. But no, it was good. I mean, I enjoyed it.
What's a good food pairing for this?
So I mean, this is an everyday wine. I think it kind of falls into that everyday price point. This is something that, depending on what you're having, I mean, I would love to have this right next to a burger. I would definitely crush a couple of glasses of that. Barbecue, more meat heavy, I think would work pretty well, or more stewed. I had actually this for lunch today from this Korean place, bulgogi beef.
Be good with that.
I think that'd be great.
Because there's a lot of spice, and you got the beef aspect and all of that. All right, so do we like this wine?
I think it's good.
I mean, for the money, $12 to $15, very young, 2015, good value. My kid's 27. He's going to his friend's house for dinner. They're going to make bulgogi. Brings 3 bottles of this, costs him $37. That's awesome. A good play for that?
100%. There's a great rosé and a white that they make too that are also great values.
Okay. Do you have this on your wine list?
We have the rosé.
You do?
Yeah.
All right. I forgot on the wine list to ask you, and this plays into it, but I always ask everyone, best wine around $15 retail. red and white. So a partial answer is this.
Yeah.
This isn't a bad play for 15, a little over, a little under. Give me another red and give me a white.
I'm going to throw a sparkling in real quick.
Okay.
Just because I
Don't
think
mind
it's the Cava, the Freshenet, it's like $10, the black bottle. I mean,
so Freshenet, which everyone sees, is a great value for $10.
for $10,
So that's
you
our
can't
white.
find a better sparkling wine.
Give me a red. We'll go with this.
For red, I mean, yeah, the Bila. Oh, I mean, most things from you can find a lot of Languedoc and Roussillon wines at that price point, and they're going to over deliver.
So this is a wine for $12-13, over delivering, great with the foods we mentioned to pair it.
Absolutely.
Will always be good. All right, so that's the 2015 Michel Chapoutier Les Vins de Billahaut Côte de Roussillon Village. We liked it. All right, we're going to wrap up. If you have a question, wine happening, or event, hit me up at sam@thegrapenation.com. That's Sam at The Grape Nation. Follow us on Facebook, The Grape Nation, / The Grape Nation. Instagram, @BenRuby, and Twitter, @BenRuby with no S. And we're going to be launching our website soon. We want to thank our guest, Caleb Ganzer, from La Compagnie Vins Surnaturels in New York City. There's a lot going on there, so let's talk about how people could know what's going on. Let's talk website, mailing list. Give me some ways to
The
connect.
two best ways to follow along. I mean, the first is our Instagram. We post a lot of things there, upcoming events. So
What is
Compagnie
it?
NYC, COMPAGNIE NYC. And our website. We post all the events on the website.
The wine list is on it.
Yeah, everything. We try to be as communicative as possible.
The events that we talked about.
For sure.
Right.
And then you can sign up for a mailing list on there as well.
Cool. All right, so thank you, Caleb. Try to get down to Compagnie. Caleb is there all the time. So if you're there, look for him, ask for him. Tall, thin, dapper, handsome man. You can't miss him. But he also has a great crew on the floor working with him.
Awesome crew.
Awesome. Thank you to our engineer, Vitor, and everyone at the Heritage Radio Network. I'm Sam Ben-Ruby, and you have been listening to The Grape Nation.
Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content and to hear about exclusive events, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at heritage_radio. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be a part of the food world's most innovative community? Rate the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join our community by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. Thanks for listening.